Hello, and welcome to Echoes from the Trenches, where we discuss lesser-told stories from war. I'm your host, Mateo Zazueta, and today...
What are you doing?
Alright, let's do this properly, but quickly. I'm here to walk you through a couple of stories through World War I. First on our list is the story of the German Sturmtruppen, which translates to stormtroopers. No, not those stormtroopers. I'm talking about a German military unit created in the spring of 1915. The Sturmtruppen were elite shock troops of the German army, designed by Willy Rohr, trained to swiftly and aggressively clear out the enemy trenches using infiltration tactics. Rather than attacking as an army like a giant wave to take over an entire trench at once, the German stormtroopers would spread out and attack key points in order to enter the trenches. The idea being to open holes and flow throughout the trenches to clear out the enemy. In order to do this, they needed to be well armed. Because the focus was on speed, it would be impractical for them to carry large rifles, so they instead were equipped with more lightweight equipment that allowed them to move swiftly. Their weaponry consisted of small machine guns, pistols, grenades, and knives. Stormtroopers would scatter and quickly assault many points, shocking, confusing, and spreading fear throughout the enemy trench. Better aim than in Star Wars 2. The next story I'd like to tell you may as well be a dark comedy film. Sir Adrian Carton of Wiart, nicknamed the Unkillable Soldier, was shot 11 times, survived 2 plane crashes, and even lost his left hand. Oh, and he was a war prisoner too. Quite the record. Born in Brussels, Belgium in 1880, Wiart romanticized war and dreamed that he would die valiantly on the battlefield. But alas, he was stuck at Balliol College in Oxford, meant to follow in his father's footsteps to become a lawyer. In his autobiography, Happy Odyssey, the memoirs of Sir Adrian Carton of Wiart, he writes about how he felt about the outbreak of the South African War and his change in attitude over time on becoming a soldier, stating, "At that moment I knew, once and for all, that war was in my blood. I was determined to fight and I didn't mind who or what. I didn't know why the war had started, and I didn't care on which side I was to fight. If the British didn't fancy me, I would offer myself to the wars." He ended up enlisting with the British under false identity. I know now that the ideal soldier is the man who fights for his country because it is fighting, and for no other reason. Causes, politics, and ideologies are better left to the historians. De Wiart had an astonishing career, and life in general, really. But I know what you really want to hear about. You just want to hear about those brutal, gruesome injuries I introduced him with, don't you? You sick-minded individual. So let's get to it. Remember how I said he wished to die gloriously in battle? Well, his wishes were almost answered right there in South Africa, fighting the Boers, when he was injured in his stomach and shot right through the groin. Quite painful. He continued his adventures still with the British Army and went off to fight the rebels in British Somaliland. Unfortunately for him, days later, England declared war on Germany. To De Wiart, that meant he was essentially stuck in some little unimportant side conflict. As soon as the news reached him of England's involvement in the Great War, he was severely depressed. He wished to go back. It seems that fate favored him, however, as he was shot in the left eye and ear a few months later and was able to get sent back to England. This was his chance to join the grand conflict. He agreed to wear a glass eye to fight in Flanders, but eventually decided it too uncomfortable and threw it out of his taxi, and instead took up an eye patch, becoming his signature look. His first night at Ypres, he came under German fire, his hand becoming a gory mess. 2 of his fingers were hanging on by a bit of skin, and all of his palm and most of his wrist were blown away, his watch being blown into the remains of his wrist. He was sent to a hospital at Hasbrouck, and by December of 1915 he had grown tired of the many operations conducted in an attempt to save his hand and decided to have it amputated. Soon enough, he found his way back to the battlefield, becoming second in command to Tom Bridges' 19th Division. This was his first experience with the infantry, having previously served the cavalry. On July 3rd, 1916, he led his men in an attack on La Voisin, a strong German-held position. This little adventure ended with the back of his head being blown off by a machine gun bullet, miraculously missing vital parts. He was once again sent to the hospital, but this time only for 3 weeks. It was also for this that he earned the Victoria Cross, the most prestigious award in the British military. 9th of September, 1916. Captain, temporary Lieutenant Colonel, Adrian Carton de Wiart
for most conspicuous bravery, coolness, and determination during severe operations of a prolonged nature. It was owing in a great measure to his dauntless courage and an inspiring example that a serious reverse was averted. He displayed the utmost energy and courage in forcing our attack home. After 3 other battalion commanders had become casualties, he controlled their commands and ensured that the ground won was maintained at all costs. He frequently exposed himself in the organization of positions and of supplies, passing unflinchingly through fire barrage of the most intense nature. His gallantry was inspiring to all.
Anyways, he was back on the battlefield once more for the battles of Arras and Passchendaele in 1917. At Passchendaele, he found himself once again catching German barrage and had his clothes blown into his hip. After this, only a personal appeal to General Hubert Gau.
A confusing word when it comes to the spelling, but it's actually pretty easy once you know. Goff. Goff, okay. Goff, just replace the GH with an F. And, yeah, and the OU with an A. Goff. And now you know.
Only a personal appeal to General Hubert
Goff
was able to get him back out on the battlefield, just in time for the German Spring Offensive in 1918. Once again, Wiart found himself in the middle of all the action when a large piece of shrapnel buried itself in his hip, nearly costing him his leg. He was once again able to return in October to the war, but only to witness the end. One of his most famous quotes is from his autobiography, in which he states, "Frankly, I had enjoyed the war." Oh, I'm blasting my ISO right now. It's at 3200 maximum, and yeah, it's probably pretty dark. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Echoes from the Trenches, where we covered World War I stories, lesser known World War I stories. I bet that this whole time you thought I was speaking through this microphone. I don't need this microphone. It's pointless. It's gone. I wasn't speaking through the microphone. I have a little lav here. I also bet that you think that you're looking at me in my backyard and you're not just staring at a green screen in which I am on. Let's pull down the green screen, please. Oh, would you look at... I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Anyways, bye.